Writer and journalist Robert Fisk once said, "Cedars know the history of the earth better than history itself," a proverb in line with many archival accounts that cast the Lebanese cedar tree as a representation of immortality and eternal life. Despite the consistency of this historical tenor, myths and narratives about this sublime evergreen conifer as thriving, abundant, certain, and everlasting have been told and retold differently by humans. While both past and present stories describe wide expanses of cedars, present-day forests exist only as isolated groves of remaining Cedrus libani. All the while, narratives of the cedar's prevalence hold pervasive association within the political and social spheres of present-day Lebanon. In the wake of Mount Lebanon's deforestation since ancient times, steady erasure of the cedar's geographical location continues today. The construction of various infrastructures is destroying the tree and its surrounding ecosystems, endangering neighboring plants and animals to the brink of extinction. In Tablet 5 of the Epic of Gilgamesh, Humbaba, mythical guardian of the cedar forest, is slain by Gilgamesh and his comrade Enkidu, who proceed to cut down the forest as a prize of victory. This glorification of ecological destruction initiated a legitimizing narrative in which human exploitation and consumption of nature as a resource assumes precedence over environmental conservation. At the moment of its erasure, the cedar was reincarnated as a relic of profit-driven success, deprived of its agency, its rights, and history. Instead, a contagion of dogmatism, of power and leverage, of extractive industries, and of mass production infects Lebanon's Cedrus libani. Most recently, a perpetual infatuation with the cedar as a static image designated the tree as a national symbol. It is featured as a centerpiece on the country's flag, and across the visual branding of its financial and national institutions. This fixed visual representation of the Lebanese cedar has been adopted by far-right and fascist parties within Lebanon to perpetuate exclusionary narratives of xenophobia and Lebanese supremacy. While the far-right has objectified the cedar and has distorted its image for sectarian purposes, opposition parties, the liberal left, pan-Arab, and pan-Syrian contingencies, depict the Cedrus libani as a symbol of compassion and unity. Throughout the cedar's lifespan, victories and failures of the nation-state have been built on an unevolving image, one resolute representation of an anonymous tree, a civic emblem used to craft the illusion of a distinct Lebanese identity. In the Old and New Testaments, the Lebanese cedar is mentioned frequently as it carries ideological and spiritual significance. Increasingly, the Maronite Church has focused on the Cedrus libani as a token of higher divinity through multiple visual and physical manifestations. An organ of class rule and the creation of order in Lebanon, the Maronite Church engages the cedar as a symbol of power, salvation, and higher divinity. Within fabricated and cloistered worlds, the Cedrus libani is trapped by divisive beliefs and religious allegories. corrupted narratives around the Lebanese cedar extend beyond being ideological and exist as systemic guides for extractive industries prone to and designed by such forms of manipulation. The presence of colonial authorities in Lebanon amplified the ongoing destruction of the Cedar Lebanese habitat. The French colonial regime consolidated its power and solidified its presence by making Lebanese citizens feel French through the construction of luxury ski resorts, sports competitions, and other Western venues of consumer recreation. The emphasis was not on economic prosperity, but on engendering a Lebanese community reliant upon the idea of possessing an identité française. This control of the Cedar's current and future territories as a means of creating different societies within Lebanon not only objectified the tree as an attraction, but also implicated citizens as schismatic pawns in a colonial marketing strategy aimed at gaining power over the demographics of Lebanon. Corruption also resurfaces in material cultures. As a decorative ornament, the image of the Lebanese cedar is recycled on various consumer products and objects. The Cedar Libani has no choice other than to surrender as a commodity. The tree is stripped of all value beyond monetary worth, yet another victim of Homo economicus. Denied its territorial rights, the cedar is reduced to enforce political, religious, imperialistic and touristic, extractive and consumer applications. At the start of the Holocene, the Lebanese cedar, Cedar Libani, populated the mountains of the eastern Mediterranean coast. Various civilizations prized the tree as an excellent source of timber sought after for its distinct biological characteristics. The evergreen's aroma and remarkable resistance to decay and invasion by insects greatly increased its value as a resource for trade. Extracted for thousands of years for the purpose of commerce and exchange, the Cedar Libani is almost entirely deforested in present-day Lebanon, found only in isolated groves and government-protected nature reserves. The Phoenicians. Now recognized as the first civilization to cut down the Lebanese cedar, the Phoenicians were thalassocratic inhabitants that are known to have historically established many of the first city-states along the eastern Mediterranean coast. They took advantage of the Cedar Libani as a valuable asset, developing trade networks connecting lands, seas, and early municipalities to sell cedar wood. Due to its desirability, Cedar Libani timber became a valuable commodity and was purchased en masse by neighboring civilizations and markets across the Mediterranean, extending as far as modern-day Morocco and Spain. Mesopotamia. The Neo-Assyrian Empire solidified its trading relations with the Phoenicians, acquiring large amounts of cedar wood for the construction of their kingdom. King Assur-Nasirpal II ordered Cedar Libani timber, among other types of wood, to build himself monumental palaces. The inscription upon Assur-Nasirpal's palace mentions how the cedar and other trees were used for its construction. In addition to its use for the construction of terraced buildings, Cedar Libani timber was also used for small-scale goods, including furniture, objects, reliefs, and sculptures. Egyptians. Despite their trading relations with the Phoenicians, the ancient Egyptian Empire's eventual conquest of Phoenician lands and resources meant direct access to cedar forests. The Cedrus libani held a significant role in ancient Egypt's religion and economy. Cedar wood was used for the construction of temples and shrines, and its extracted resin in the ritual of mummification. Lebanese cedar's powerful enzymatic, antibacterial, and fungal properties prevent decay and enable corpse preservation for thousands of years. Druze and Christian settlements. Centuries later, Druze settlements and Christian communities around Mount Lebanon continued to cut down the Lebanese cedar, among other native species, to clear the land for new villages and agriculture, and to construct homes. Inside these domestic spaces, Cedrus libani wood was used as a fuel to heat homes, and for its preservation properties to conserve food and other perishables. Ottomans. During the early 20th century, Ottoman sultans ordered cedar-forested lands to be cleared for the purpose of constructing the Hejaz Railway, which extended from Damascus to Medina, with branch lines to Haifa on the Mediterranean Sea. Cedrus libani wood was also used to fuel the railway's trains and for maintenance purposes. Deforestation of the Lebanese cedar continued to provide for the early construction phase of the Aleppo-Baghdad Railroad. British Mandate of Palestine. Despite Queen Victoria's alleged concerns to protect Cedrus libani for their biblical importance, exercised through the construction of a stone wall around the Cedars of God forest, the destruction of the Lebanese cedar for imperialist purposes was continued by the British Empire. Their Haifa-Beirut-Tripoli Railway, a network of military and trade infrastructure, helped to cement English dominance in the region. They also used Lebanese cedar wood for the railway's construction, and to power trains and building machinery. Jumblat's feudal domain. After the Lebanese Civil War, Walid Jumblat, a Lebanese Druze politician and notorious warlord, used conservation efforts around dwindling numbers of Cedrus libani to greenwash his crimes. Monopolizing upon his established rule of the Shuf cedar forest, in the wake of civil conflict, he founded the Shuf Biosphere, one of Lebanon's largest nature preserves and expanses of Lebanese cedars, under a public agenda of ecological conservation and measures of post-Civil War development. Landmines were planted around the cedars as a method of protecting the trees, which served to isolate and restrict entry to forests, and multiplied the number of military zones. Jaja crimes. Satrida Jaja, a Lebanese politician and head of the Lebanese forces, a far-right Christian parliamentary group, appointed herself as the protector of the Cedars of God forest. Her conservation efforts around the Cedrus libani are regarded by many as diversion techniques to conceal the crimes of her husband, Samir Jaja, executed against the Lebanese and Palestinian civilians. Not only were her actions to protect the tree selective towards the Christian communities, but they also further contributed to the cedar's demise. As a means of boosting the country's economy, cedar preserves were open to the public without regulation, allowing for destructive efforts of uncontrolled visitor traffic. Jaja herself ordered for a hill to be bulldozed within the Cedars of God forest, to flatten lands and make space for a stage to host the Cedars International Festival, a Lebanese cedar-themed music event. In the wake of the festival, this patch of landscape lays barren, unable to host Cedrus libani or other plant species.